This is the BBN, and today on Presents, we bring you how Fox can fix the X-Men. Solution number one, the hardest reboot ever. The X-Men franchise has fans globally, worldwide. People love them some mutants. That's a good thing, especially if you're a comic book fan like me who grew up reading the pages of Marvel Comics and DC a little, but mainly Marvel Comics. Grew up reading the pages of these things, loved them, loved the stories that they had, and was extremely excited to hear that the first X-Men movie was actually going to be made. And then it was made. And then I wasn't happy about it. So today, we're going to tell you how to fix what's broken. Solution number one, the hardest reboot possible. You're going to recast. You're going to get a new director. You're even going to get new cinematography guys. You're going to get a totally new vision. If the X-Men were a little bit darker in its cinematography, I think it'd be more appealing, more like a Watchmen, like what Zack Snyder does. It'd be much more appealing, aesthetically pleasing to the stories that actually are in the X-Men universe. The movies that we see are not really stories from the X-Men universe. They're taking little pieces of something here, little pieces of something there, little pieces of something there, and then they're trying to cram it all together, but they're missing so much that most of the movies are just exposition. Most of the movies are just explaining stuff so you can understand what happens later, instead of you living through the event and then it having a real emotional connection to you. This is not what they're doing. What they're doing is exposition, 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 fight, exposition, 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 fight, exposition, 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 final fight. That's what they're doing in the X-Men movies. Right there. That's it. This is what's going on. So the first thing they need to do is the hardest reboot possible. And they need to recast. Now, I saw Apocalypse. Okay? And I'm not extremely disappointed in the casting as far as Scott goes. I think that a young Scott Summers would look somewhere around like how the guy that they got to play him looked. As far as with absolutely every other cast member, Psylocke. That was a great cast also. She did well. I would hoped that they would have I still think that they should not have put her in, but it had nothing to do with the way she looked, and it had nothing to do with her acting. It had more to do with her athleticism. She looked really stiff when they had her on the wires, and it didn't look fluid. And for somebody to have Psylocke's fighting abilities, you would think that a person it would just be more fluid. So they either have to decide that they want to use a little bit more CGI, or they're going to have to decide, you know what, you're going to need to do yoga for a couple months before we start filming. One of the two. Gotta give. So, yes, they need to do an extremely hard reboot. They need to, everything that they got, they need to say, you know what, it happened, but that was on a whole different Earth. Now we're on this Earth over here. So, okay, that stuff happened, but that happened in another Earth. Now we're going to the Earth 616. That probably happened on like Earth 10036. That's where that stuff happened. Anybody that know about comics understands that joke. But now we're gonna start doing the X-Men from Earth 616. That's the Marvel continuity that we basically all read, and basically that's the one that is our continuity, the 616. So yeah, now we've done with the 10036 continuity. Now we're gonna move over here to the 616 continuity, and they should make no bones about it. And they they should even embrace it. That's what they need to do. They need to embrace it. They need to recast. They need to get a new director, a director that doesn't want to. You see, when you deal with the X-Men, you deal with prejudice and you deal with racism, right? But it doesn't feel like prejudice and racism. It feels like something else. It's not prejudice and it's not racism. It's just we don't like you, but it's not us necessarily doing stuff to prevent you from doing anything. It's just we don't like you, and you know we don't like you. And that's it. It's not like in the comics when the government even had things in place that was causing for mutants to have problems here, and you had people that it was like how blacks was in the 40s. That's how it was to be a mutant. It was like how blacks were treated in the 40s. And this is not a slight against any people who live alternative lifestyles, but it was about how blacks were treated in the 40s, not how gays were treated in the 90s. You know, that's all I'm saying. It's just the whole vibe is wrong. You know, I'm not saying I'm for any oppression, and I'm not trying to speak negatively about, you know, people that live alternative lifestyles, whether you gay, anybody in the LB, I don't want to misquote, I don't really know much about that stuff, but anybody in the gay community, I'm not trying to talk negatively about them at all. But what I'm saying is that that's how the X-Men movies come across more. It doesn't come across enough like civil rights oppression. It comes off more like we just don't like you. You know, like that. That's how it comes off. Like the mutants from the comic books were treated more like, I can't say it no better, blacks in the 40s. That's how the mutants was treated. Solution number 2. You cannot have supporting characters from the comics be the lead characters in the movies. It does not make sense for Mystique to be putting together any type of X-Men team. She spent the majority of the time in the comic books as a bad guy. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever for her to be putting together any type of X-Men team. Period. That was a fail. Second, I know Wolverine is the most loved X-Men, but he is not at the forefront of every problem that they face. He's not the main guy all the time. Every once in a while, Wolverine is the guy that shit goes down. Next thing you know, in the middle of the fight, he pops up out of nowhere. He's the guy that shit goes down. Next thing you know, you carrying cross country, you end up rolling into this guy by accident, and then he finishes the way helping you. This is what he's about. He's not about what they have him. He's not the leader. Okay, you had Professor Xavier, you had Scott, then you had Storm, then you had Jean Grey wasn't there at the time, but at Storm, and you had probably like 2 or 3 other people, and then you had Wolverine. Wolverine is a lone wolf. He has no want nor need for company of others except for like the company of the other X-Men. He has no want, no need for their company. He's in love with Jean Grey. That's about it. He really doesn't care much for the rest of them. It's like Jubilee. He had a he's cool with he has an affinity for Jubilee. They changed it to Rogue in the movie, the first movies for some strange reason. Where's Rogue at now anyway? They just disappeared her. But they changed it to Jubilee for some strange reason in the first movies. From Jubilee to Rogue, pardon me. Rogue is another secondary character. In the first movies, she was in the forefront. The movies were almost basically about her. This is why Fox is screwing up. They're trying to make things that aren't aesthetically pleasing. The cinematography, I don't like it. Because they're making comic book movies and they're trying to make it look like a comic book. You can say anything you want about the Avengers movies and all of the movies that go along with it, but they stay pretty true to the costumes that these characters wear, and they make them not look cartoonish. I was just watching the Apocalypse movie. What in the hell was Magneto wearing? Why did it look like that? It looked like some composite crap. What the hell? What you like? This doesn't make sense. They're not trying to. They're trying to act like they're sticking close to the source material. But in reality, all they did was buy characters to just go do who knows what with. So yeah, solution number 2, don't have supporting characters from the comic books be the lead characters in the movies. It don't make sense. Solution number 3, Marvel has a blueprint. Follow it. The Marvel blueprint is we're going to release 2 or 3 movies a year, right? Then after 3 years, there's going to be a climactic resolve, because the majority of the stories will connect one way or the other, and it will be a climactic resolve after about a couple of years. This makes so much sense because when you have certain characters who are larger than life, having them only show up in one movie or only showing their effects or the reach that they have to affect the things in their universe or in their world or on the planet only from one movie, you can't really grasp it. You can't understand the magnitude. A perfect example. What if instead of having the Infinity Gems show up in all of these different movies since the beginning, they decided to say, you know what, we're just going to give Thanos a one-off. He's going to show up. We're going to give him about 30 minutes of screen time, 35 minutes of screen time. He's going to show up, have a couple of words, get in 1 or 2 fights, and then boom, he's out of there. What kind of sense would that make? That doesn't make any sense. Thanos is one of the biggest figures in Marvel Comics. He's one of the best villains in all of comics. Why would you just have him have a one-off? So, the solution number 3 is follow the Marvel blueprint. What should they have done? First of all, they need to scrap everything that they're doing. Everything. They need to have more than one movie a year. They need to have storylines that intersect with one another, but aren't necessarily the same story. Why am I saying that? You say, okay, Agent Coulson. You know what Agent Coulson allowed? Agent Coulson allowed for every single which one of the Marvel movies that he appeared in the first block of movies that they had, he allowed for all of them to have an intersecting point. Because when he showed up, S.H.I.E.L.D. Could they have always have had a different S.H.I.E.L.D. agent? Yeah, they could have. But it would not have had the same effect. You've seen the same guy that we know from the last movie show up in this movie and then show up in another movie. Doesn't even need a lot of screen time. He's there to let you know all of these things intersect and go together. This isn't the same story, but the events that's taking place here and the events that are taking place over there have a mutual interest or a common bond betwixt them. That's what Agent Coulson did. So that is the number one thing that they need to do. Follow the Marvel blueprint. So after rebooting, everything, and then after deciding that we're going to let the lead characters be the lead characters, they need to then follow the Marvel blueprint. Solution number 4, they need to make a deal with Marvel. You see, in order to do this 2-3 movie a year thing that I just mentioned a minute ago, in solution number 2, they need to have more properties. But they need to have properties that work with their properties. Fantastic Four doesn't work with their properties, and they do not look very interested in making a good Fantastic Four movie. Period. They also don't have television series. For whatever the reason is, I have no idea. So I'm saying, just for argument's sake, let's say they have the cinematic rights, but they don't have the television rights. They go to Fox goes to Marvel, and they say, look, we want to make a deal. We know that y'all want the X-Men. We know that y'all want Fantastic Four. We know that y'all be much better at making a Fantastic Four movie than us. We know that y'all need Fantastic Four soon, because if this deal is going to be made, they need them soon. So they say, what we're going to do is we're going to make the same deal that you made with Sony for Spider-Man for the Fantastic Four. Because, they don't want to just give everything. They don't want to just give stuff for free. We're going to make the same movie for fans that we're going to make the same deal that you made with Sony for Spider-Man for Fantastic Four. Whereas you will produce the film, but you're going to step by step walk us through it. You're going to get us everything that we need to do, and you're going to basically do the film. It's going to basically be a Marvel Disney film, but we're going to produce it. And you will have the rights to use our Fantastic Four, your Fantastic Four, because obviously at this point, Marvel will be picking the people that's going to be, hopefully, because Fox is terrible at everything. So hopefully Marvel will be picking the people that will be playing the Fantastic Four. So they'll say, at this point, you'll be able to use the Fantastic Four in any of the movies in which you choose that you want to use them in. And all we want is 2 properties that you have no use of and you are not using at this point. 2 properties. And we'll even make a deal that if these 2 properties don't gross a certain amount of money over a certain amount of period of time, that you have the right to buy it back from us for the same price that it was worth when we acquired it. See, that does 2 things. That makes it so that if they do get the properties and fuck up the properties like they probably would do if they don't follow all the other stuff that I'm saying, but if they do get the properties and they mess up the property and they lower the value of the property, that allows Marvel and Disney to buy the property back from them at the rate in which it was worth when they freaking got it in the first place, and not at the depreciated rate. What also that does is, if the property is doing much better but not up to expectations, then Marvel will be able to still buy it back from them, but you had a good try. Nobody is really penalized. You're just getting the opportunity, and if it works out, then it works out. But if Marvel does buy the properties back from them, then also the Fantastic Four rights also reverts back also. So we'll start at ground zero. So that means that even if they do bad with the 2 properties in which I'm saying that they should take, I'll tell you in a minute, and Marvel is saying, you know what, let them keep screwing around with those properties. We don't really want to use those properties, even though they're screwing up with them. We still want to have the Fantastic Four, so we'll just let them keep those properties. You see how that works? And the 2 properties, Alpha Flight and Excalibur. Imagine if they made an Excalibur movie with Mad Jim Jaspers. Imagine if they made a real Wolverine origin movie where he's running through the woods and Guardian and his wife finds him and nurses him back to health. And then having it be like that, and one or two of those movies work out, maybe then you could talk to Marvel about lending you the Hulk. Because remember, Wolverine first showed up in the Hulk movie. It was the Wendigo the Hulk movie, comic book. It was a Hulk comic book, and it had the Wendigo and it had Wolverine in it. It was the first time Wolverine ever showed up in a comic. So these are the things in which you could do. And then they get the property. But hold on. I'm not done yet. You're going to also say, look, Marvel, we need some television. We need to get on TV. So you're also going to be asking for the rights to take the property X-Men, which you already own, and use those and get the TV rights for them. Well, as far as the TV rights will go, what you'll just be doing is you'll just pay Marvel a certain amount of money over, let's say, a 5-year period. So after 5 years, if it's just not working out for you, you just stop paying Marvel and stop producing television. But you don't put the X-Men on. You put them New Mutants. Putting the New Mutants on, and whoever they get to play Charles Xavier in the hard reboot, you'll never see Xavier. You'll just hear his voice, because Xavier has the ability. See, a lot of things that get lost in the comic books, Xavier really didn't go places with the X-Men. They're just screwing up the movies by making it look like Xavier was in all of these places with the X-Men. He really wasn't. He was in some places, but the majority of the time, he was just talking to them across the world using his mind. He's the most powerful, I think he is the most powerful telepath in the planet. So he was just basically talking telepathically to his students. So, they have this where he's in the movies, he's always in the middle of danger. He's in a wheelchair. Why would he always be in the middle of danger? Anyway, so you can have the movie guy, and then that way that'll make it easier for you to connect the movies with the television show, because Professor Xavier will be in both, and it'll be that linchpin connecting everything. So that's definitely what they need to do. Make a deal with Marvel, get the properties, get those 2 properties from Marvel. Excalibur, which goes directly with X-Men, and Alpha Flight, which also goes directly with X-Men. And then on top of that, Excalibur's a European team, and Alpha Flight is a Canadian team. So then you're going to be opening up 2 different markets. Like, this is just good business. This is just good business. I don't really know what they're doing over there in Fox. I do understand why Marvel hasn't taken it on, because they're just doing so much. Like, you don't understand. Marvel's putting out 2 to 3 movies a year right now. They're doing so much, and they're putting so much stuff in line. If they add more, then they'll have to figure out a way to connect everything else. They don't got time for that. Fox could open up a market. It's basically that they're going to be going straight for the Canadian market, straight for the European market. This is just a good business move. Solution number 5. Have more than one movie a year and stop naming every movie X-Men. You want to know why Deadpool did so great? It wasn't just that it was actually a good film. It wasn't just that the people that do the X-Men movies didn't do the Deadpool movies, even though these are all good reasons in which why it did well. I mean, if I would have heard that the people that do the X-Men movie were doing the Deadpool movie, I would not have went and spent my money to go see it. I would have either figured out something else. I was going to spend my money to go see X-Men movie. That's just... not unless I had to review it. And at the point that Deadpool came out, I wasn't doing any kind of reviews or anything. So I wouldn't have went and seen it. That's it. I'm catching up on all the X-Men movies, the latest X-Men movies now, due to the fact that I have no choice because I'm for the channel. But no, X-Men movies are all horrible. Every last one of them is horrible. People that don't read the comic books, I can understand how you're entertained. People that just love the X-Men so much and they just want them to do well and they just trying so hard to pick out good stuff here and good stuff there, absolutely understand. But the X-Men movies are horrible. The best thing about all of the X-Men movies are the Quicksilver freaking spots. That right there, what they've done with Quicksilver, if they could have just somehow used that creative process to think of how. I was in a conversation with somebody a while back and they were saying how whack Superman is and how Superman's a boring character and all of this and this and that. And I said, no, it's not that Superman is a boring character. It's that the people who are writing don't have the imagination to really explain his abilities and extrapolate on what his powers actually are. That's the issue. That's the problem. So now when they thought of Quicksilver, they used Quicksilver speed, totally different from the speed on the Flash. On the TV show The Flash, there's a lot of slow motion. You know, everything stops and then he's moving super fast, but he's in slow motion. And it's more like he's moving quickly rather than like in Quicksilver, it's like he activates his powers and it allows for him to just move at a different rate and pace than everyone else. Like in reality, he can just activate his powers and stand there and everything will be going super slow. Whereas it seems like with the Flash has to actually be moving because then he's moving fast. You understand what I'm saying? It's the different imaginings of basically similar powers. I'm not saying one is right. I'm not saying one is wrong. Maybe the Flash is done that way because they don't have the budget of the movies. That's seems pretty plausible. No, and that one freaking Quicksilver scene, I heard it took weeks to shoot. So, good luck with that in the series. It ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work. But the point in which I'm making is that it's the different imaginings that allows for a character's power to truly be. Basically, I'm done went way off topic, but basically the problem is that the movies just suck. The X-Men movies just suck. They're always trying to do too much in each individual movie to get something done because they don't really have any movies that connect. So what they need to do is they need to start making one movie a year. They need to have 2 or 3 movies every year. And then maybe one X-Men movie every 2.5 to 3 years. Because you could have a Scott and Jean movie. It don't got to be named Scott and Jean. It could be named something else, like, you know, like how they do The Bourne or how they do Star Wars. Like, you know, nothing is really Star Wars. It's Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi is really the name. You know, it's really the name, you know, with the exception of the first Star Wars, A New Hope. You know, all of the Clone Wars. Like, that's how they need to do it. That is how they need to do it. So they have 2 or 3 movies come out a year. But I'm not talking about Deadpool. I hope Deadpool isn't forced to get inside of their universe unless it's a hard reboot. But that's what they need to do. They could have Scott and Jean could go do some stuff. I have no idea whatsoever why they haven't thought about doing the Morlocks. And then they had Caliban. Caliban lives in the freaking sewers of New York City. What the hell was he doing in Germany? This is just stuff that don't make any sense. The Apocalypse movie, I don't really want to do a review of it at this moment. But that's just so much stuff that didn't make any sense. I should have said spoiler alert. But half y'all not even going to know that Caliban lives in the sewers of New York City, so it don't even matter. More than half. They're just doing it wrong. But that's what they need to do. They need to have 2 or 3 movies. I don't understand why they haven't did a Storm when she goes into the sewers of New York City after she loses the use of her powers and she fights Callista. I don't know why they haven't done that. That's such a great storyline. They need to a hard reboot. I'm going to give you the first movie right here on the hard reboot. Professor Xavier is trying to put a second team together because his first team disappeared on the island. The only person that was able to be recovered from the first team was Cyclops. He somehow got out. The first team is Iceman, Jean Grey, Beast, Angel. So the first movie would be Professor Xavier putting a team together that's going to be led by Cyclops to go to the island and recover the X-Men that were lost. That's it. You have a storyline before the actual movie, so we're not starting from dead zero. And then you have the conflict, and them saving them isn't even going to be the third act. They're going to save them in the second act. The first act, they're putting a team together. While they're putting the team together, there's already a problem with Magneto, who's trying to launch nukes, who's trying to launch a contagion into the atmosphere that will then remain, that will then activate every mutant's X gene and also kill off half of the humans on the planet. You know, they're trying to do that also. They stop trying to stop him from doing that. They find out about that in the second act. So the first act would be them getting the team together, getting the team to go. The second act would be them actually on the island rescuing their people. And in the third act, they're going to go straight from the island and have to stop Magneto, who has gotten people to work with him, like the Blob, who works with Magneto, Toad, who works with Magneto, Mystique, who works with Magneto, Pyro, who works with Magneto. The movies that they could do can be so great, and they're not. And they're not great specifically because Fox is F-ups. Period. Anyway, those was my solutions on how to five ways to fix what's broken with the X-Men franchise. Thank you very much for your time. Gotta go.